Today's episode is sponsored by Depiction of Man, who you can catch on their West Coast tour this month. The dates are March 25th in Fresno, March 26th in Las Vegas, March 27th in Phoenix, March 29th in Stockton, March 30th in Santa Rosa, March 31st in Oakland, April 1st in Eureka, April 2nd in Corvallis. For details, head to Depiction of Man on Instagram at Depiction of Man. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to remind you about our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine, where you can go to sign up and support the show and get music sneak peeks, read zines, and so much more. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. And now, I'd like to play something for you. You're hearing Eden Grew Without You by Worn Through, featuring my pal, Aster Lyra Scott on vocals. The song comes from our debut album, A Thorn, a Sliver, which you can find on Middleman Records Bandcamp now.
The first thing I remember really hooking me, my cousin had Blink-182's Enema of the State CD, and I remember listening to a fucking Adams song, and it's this sappy song, right? And it kind of hit me then that I always liked sad songs. I was able to look back the previous year or whatever. I was pretty young, but there was this Savage Garden song, Truly Madly Deeply, and I was enamored with this song, and it's a cheesy mom song or whatever, but it was stuff like that. And I got a little bit older, and one of my neighbors was this really big Christian. His whole family was super Christian, and he had all these weird Christian bands I'd never heard before. And one of them was Thousand Foot Crutch, and can't think of what the name of the CD was, but there was a song on it that just pumped me up, and I would just always pretend I was playing along. And I was like, I got to get a guitar, I got to get drums, I got to get something. And then my brother bought a guitar from a yard sale. We didn't have an amp or anything. We didn't have a tuner. It was missing parts and stuff. But I was like, I have to do this.
Yeah, and so you're just playing this electric guitar acoustically, all around the house with 4 out of the 6 strings or something for
right.
years. Or, yeah, it's wild. I always hear people talk oh yeah, I got this guitar at a yard sale or something, and because I like comics and stuff as well, and so you see people, oh, I got these comics at a yard sale. I've never been to a yard sale where there's anything remotely cool. It's just maybe a cool jacket, but,
Mm-hmm.
but just never anything but one time we were playing a show with this band called Baxter Kid Disaster, and actually their vocalist, just to do the comics and music thing full swing, their vocalist was drawing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. His name's Gavin Smith, and he was drawing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 6 months ago, so that's wild. But anyway, it was it was their first day on this tour, and my old band Akameli was playing with them, and he just brings out all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, we have no money for this tour, so I just brought all this stuff to sell at our merch table. And one of them was actually DC versus Marvel superheroes trade paperback, and it was crusty and all beat up, but I hadn't read it since I was like a kid, so I was like, yeah, give me that. And then how much do you want for that guitar in the case? And it was a Squire, and he was like, guitar and the case, $40. And I was like,
Jesus.
I just like looked to my daughter who was like, I don't know, she's maybe like 8 at the time, and I was like, do you want a guitar? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And I felt, I was like, I felt kind of like bad, like I should give you more money, but also I don't really have more money, and also like you need this money, so like yeah. But yeah, really, I actually was just thinking about that band last night too, because I was like finishing reading like the original Ninja Turtles like thing forever ago, and like I was just like I said, like full circle moment, and I was like, I wonder if Baxter Kid Disaster has any songs online. So I'll have to like remember to do that later. They were like a they were like a they had like synths and stuff, but they were like kind of screamo, but they were kind of like Reggie in the Full Effect ish as well. They were
Okay.
like one of these like they sat in a real weird middle area, which was really cool, and they were always fun to watch. But yeah, so how long was it until you did get like an amp or started like playing seriously, or got your own guitar, or whatever the course of events there was?
So from that point, I was probably like 8 or 9 or something. And I ended up getting a guitar when I was 11. I
Okay.
was like, it was like right after Christmas. I saved all my money and stuff. My parents were never going to buy me a guitar or anything like that.
Hmm.
I was playing the saxophone in like fifth grade band, but like they were never going to let me get like a loud instrument that wasn't for like educational purposes or whatever in their view. Um, so yeah, I was hunting and I got this absolute piece of garbage. I think it was like a Johnson like Strat knockoff. Still have it, but it's like beyond repair.
Um,
But yeah, I just I like got super into it. Started learning like tabs to like everything that I could, and applied what little bit I had from band class, and yeah, that's it really.
yeah. It's funny how like there's always it's like, no, you can't have a guitar, but you can have a saxophone, which like for a child learning an instrument, to me, in my opinion, is infinitely more annoying. Like just like random saxophone noises, like
Yeah,
performed like at a beginner level, is just like, to me it's like, but I
and you
say
can't
that.
turn it down.
Yeah,
Like you can
exactly.
turn an amp down.
Yeah, yeah, and also just like the frequency just cuts through every wall. Like there's
Yeah.
no, um, but I say that, and at the same time, like when my son, who like he doesn't play anymore, but when he was playing trumpet, I I would be in the other room just like giddy, like that and he wasn't like good as far as I could tell. You know what I mean? Like of course
Hmm.
I'd never say that, but like, you know, as far as I could tell, he wasn't good. But I'd be in the other room just like ecstatic, and especially like I would I found it really like, I don't know. I appreciated the the way that it didn't sound good. Like in a strange way. Like I was like really into it. Like just as a in an almost avant-garde way, just like just you hear these funky noises and you're just like, oh, that's cool. Like this is so interesting or bad that it's like cool, but
Right.
um
People pay good money for like effects adapters to do stuff like this.
yeah, now it's a whole like cottage industry to have stuff that turns your sounds weird, but yeah. So like once you got a guitar, you started learning tabs and stuff. Like
Mhm.
were you still in that sort of like I'm not really familiar with the band you mentioned, like, but is this like Christian, like metalcore and like Blink 182 sort of era, like pop punk kind of stuff
Um,
that you were listening to, or?
so Thousand Foot Crutch was like, I don't know, they had like these like rap rock kind of songs. They had like pop punk songs. Th- they were like, I don't even know how to say it. Like that they had like a lot of mainstream appeal. They would have fit like on any radio station.
Yeah, it's like they were
Um,
just trying to like, it's like what thing c- can we also try to like attract young people to our music, kind of
yeah,
youth pastor
it almost
vibes.
like a POD or something, you know,
Uh-huh.
who was probably another Christian band also.
I believe so. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, uh, so I was listening to them and stuff, and I uh, I moved to Michigan. So I was born in Ohio. I moved to
Okay.
Michigan, got my guitar like the following year, and then my classmates all like were getting into punk rock. They all had like older brothers showing them cool shit, and started having people make me mix CDs and stuff like that. Um, a lot of stuff like the Casualties were like popular, Misfits and Ramones and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and more and more, I was like, yeah, I have to do this. And my peers were starting to play instruments and stuff like that too. And eventually, you form your first band and you're like, we suck, but this is fucking cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Where were you born in Ohio?
Oregon, right outside of Toledo.
Oh, okay. I was born in Dayton. Yeah.
Dayton. Okay.
Yeah. I was born at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, like on the base.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've told this story before, so excuse me if people listening have heard it, but for a long time, because like I didn't know who my biological father was, and I was born at this airport base where my grandma would talk about, she worked there for like her entire life. She would talk about there's aliens there and stuff. So for a long time, I was like, I'm literally an alien test tube or whatever. Yeah. And
That's crazy.
yeah, because why was I born at this Air Force base? Until I was like 14, and my like next door neighbor lady, who was like my mom's best friend, was like, no, actually, this guy is your biological father, and that's a whole other thing. But yeah, like I forever when I was like a teenager and stuff, and you Nirvana songs about when I was an alien and shit like that, and you're like, I'm an alien. But yeah,
Just like me for real.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, when and then you go, and then you, yeah, I don't know. Then you fast forward a bunch of years and you find out you're trans and stuff, and then you're like, this shit has just been happening all my life. Like, why did I ever question any of this? Um,
Right.
but yeah, like you said, you started forming bands and stuff. So I'm assuming these first bands were kind of just whatever, kind of like generic punk, like let's sound like X band crossed with X band kind of thing. Um, but did any of your first bands like try to write original songs and like record your own music and stuff, or did that not come until later?
Oh yeah, that's pretty much all that I've ever done. So like I learned songs like from tab and stuff like that, but I never really played like a lot of covers. Um, Basically, if I wanted to know how to do something, I would learn a song. But beyond that, I was always just trying to write stuff to learn new things. Like if I wanted to learn how to do like a triplet ascension type of bullshit thing or something, I would just write something and I'd be like, I can't play this yet, but it sounds cool. Let me keep trying.
Yeah. I have no idea what that means, like triplet ascension, but somebody would probably be like, "Oh, like in this song that you wrote," and I'd be like, "Oh, that's what that is." Like, that's a me and Jason conversation, where like Jason would be like, "We should write something that's in this time or whatever," and then be like, "Oh, wait, this one's in this time," and I'd be like, "Thanks for telling me, because I did not know that." But yeah, it's It's funny because like yeah, I was kind of the same way. Like I never, we like my first bands or whatever. Like I don't like. I remember we would mess around like playing like somebody else's song or whatever, but I don't remember like necessarily doing like a cover until like way later um when I was in a band like sort of almost like after I got out of high school. But yeah, it was just like that's it was there was no one really around to show me how to play guitar, and this is like not like I'm really old, so it's before the internet, and the guy who sold me the guitar showed me how to play a bar chord and then left. and
Oh
like
wow.
and so it was like I was like on the I was sort of I put myself in like a which of these bands has the easiest sounding songs that I like. And so the first was the Ramones, and the second was the Misfits. And I just
Hmm.
like kept going. Eventually it's Bad Religion, and then eventually it's like Descendants, cuz I'm like, even though a lot of people would glom all of those bands into the same thing, like saying you're able to play a Bad Religion song is one thing, but if you tell me you can play a Descendants song, then I actually am like, you kind of know what you're doing, because it's like
Right.
they're miles apart. Like as far as not talking about like the players in those bands, just for like the actual like songs, being able to play the songs, it's like they're miles apart as far as like difficulty, in my opinion. But so like like when were you trying to like record your first songs and stuff like that, and what was your experience with that? Was it like already to a point where people were like recording themselves and stuff, or what was your first sort of like, we're going to record some songs we wrote experience?
So I was about 13, 12 or 13. It was just like us playing live on a camera and then like extracting the audio. So like we were, sort of recording ourselves. It didn't sound great or anything. We were just jamming in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was like that. Actually, like properly ish recording myself. When I was 14, I got a laptop, and it had this real dog shit program. Like it's worse than Audacity. It's Creative Wave Studio.
Okay.
Um, my stepdad like ordered the laptop for me, and he made sure there was something like for recording on there. And I don't think he really knew that much about it, but it was like this like silent bit of support I got from him that was kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I would record just guitar and vocals in that, and then I got FL Studio, and I would program shitty little drum beats and then record guitar and vocals over that. And so it was yeah, like 2006 ish.
Okay. What kind of stuff were you writing over? Like what um whatever type of drum beats that you could like get out of this thing?
So it was like it was probably a little more on like the post-hardcore side of things at that point. Like I was getting into like Thursday, I was getting into like Silverstein and stuff like that. Trying to emulate something out of those bands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wild that there was this whole like era there where like all of this stuff like it came from people who were like, you know I'm assuming it was like, yeah, like it, we like we saw Orchid play when we were like, you know 13, 14 years old or whatever, and like now we're making stuff that's like that, but like way more accessible or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's there's there's like this pocket of time, and that's sort of where Ache and Mealy existed, right? Where like there was only stuff like that. There wasn't like a lot of like what we might say real screamo or whatever, you know. There was like two bands of state maybe. And
Hmm.
but everything was like that. And then like like then bands start like doing tapping in their songs, and that destroyed even that for like years and years, like. And so there's that stuff throughout the like early like 2010s or whatever. And then more bands started coming up like in from like 2015 and until like 2020 or whatever, like that were like real screamo or whatever, until like now the other thing is kind of coming back. Like there's a lot of bands out of Texas and stuff that are sort of like, you're like, you really liked Silverstein and like Emery and stuff, right? And they're like, yeah. And it's so wild. It's just, there all these cycles that are a witness to if you're like hang around long enough, or like I don't, or if you're lucky enough to not just um like I consider myself lucky that people are just still like tolerating me and whatever. They're just like, get out of here, you old biddy. But yeah, I don't know. It's really cool. It's really interesting to watch how all these these things happen. Whenever people start talking about, oh, I was programming drums back in like 2006 or whatever it were, right? I'm always thinking like that, I don't know like drum programming to have come, like it came really far, really fast. Like
Oh my God, yeah.
it seems like, the mid 2010s until now. Now people are just like, they're like, oh, and I program these drums. Like, Gary Brentz is a good example, from Caranier and stuff. He all his programs, all his projects or whatever are like programmed drums, and like you could hardly tell anymore, and
Right.
whenever somebody's talking about like from back then, I'm like, I always imagine like this is just about the equivalent of like a keyboard that you're like punching the punching the keys and getting that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so I always expect someone's answer to be like, oh, Death Cab for Cutie type stuff, or something. And I'm kind of like, sick, I want to hear that. But yeah.
No, I was putting like blast beats on it and like fast double kick and stuff. Like it was nonsense.
Yeah, yeah. But it like it sounded bad, right? Because just like the time that it was,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you could clearly tell it was a little drum machine kind of thing. But yeah, it's it came like, it's just like so much stuff, like the technology like just went, it went sicko mode, as they
Yeah,
might say, at some
and at
point.
the same time too, like there's a lot of stuff like obviously like production has gotten easier. Like
Well,
a
not
lot
for
of
me,
times.
but because I'm still using a computer from 2007. But
Right. But like, you can put so many fucking effects on your drums and stuff now that like it's like, are these real? I don't know. And there's people that use triggers like overlaying samples and stuff. Are these drums real? That's a philosophical question.
hmm
Um, but like I was listening to Closure as a Waiting Room's EP, and I'm like, these are programmed drums, right? Or is this production just like a little like too polished? And
yeah,
I talked to them, and yeah, they were programmed. I'm like, oh, all right.
yeah,
If I didn't have a live-in drummer, then I would probably still be programming them.
yeah. I I don't. It's weird. I was having this mental conversation with myself the other night where it's like, I'm like, I would I would personally always rather hear like acoustic drums, even if the person is not that good. Like,
Yeah,
just because, like, there's, like, even, like, and, I don't know, like, people won't like any of these opinions, which is fine because, like, I don't think, like, nothing's going to be like, is unless someone's like, "Oh yeah, we did this with AI." Like
oof,
that's
yeah.
a line in the sand for me, right? But like
Hmm.
nothing else is going to be like to where I won't listen to it and to where it won't hinder my enjoyment, but there's the other thing where it's like it won't charm me the same way,
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
and it's just, yeah, I mean, I think I was having this conversation, with Colin, from Seisha, and we were talking about how, like, on the original recordings, like, of the LP, it was like a little. Sometimes you're like a little bit. You're like the drummer got a little tired right there, and you didn't know
Yeah,
if things were gonna fall apart. And there's an excitement to that to me, where it's just like, like, oh, what's gonna happen here, and there's a there's a no matter how many times like I hear something like that, there's a magic to it to me that's unpredictable. Even though
yeah.
it's completely predictable after you've heard it that many times. But
There's a spot like that for me on Adeline's full length.
yeah,
Um,
what's that?
Adeline,
No, I mean, like,
uh,
what spot are you talking about?
I think it's on, what the hell's that song called? It's like South something.
I'm not that familiar with the band. I just like I'm interested in hearing like you say what the song is and like explain what happens.
Basically, you just hear the drums like speed up a little bit and slow down a little bit near the end of the song.
hmm
He's kind of going crazy, and it jumps out at me.
It's just like the person catches themselves, like, or something.
Yeah, like he was honestly he was probably playing to a click and got ahead of it and then slowed down to tie back to it.
Yeah, stuff like that is, I don't know. I don't know if it's because I grew up like listening to poorly recorded, like not only like did none of these people like play to a click, but they were probably like drunk off their asses or whatever half the time when they're recording it too, or like
Right.
I always also like I always also I can't, like, the only live albums I can think of that I listened to like a lot would actually be the Descendants live albums. But when I was like, a teenager and stuff, and I would just get like a live album or whatever, I'd be like, this is so much better than the studio album. Like, I don't know what it was, where it was just like you just you heard how things really were when you only got one shot at something,
Yeah.
and I don't know, was like,
How does this band actually play together when they're not all punching in separate?
or just like, yeah, just when when there when there's a little it there's a little less control, and it's a little more just like caught in the moment, you know,
Yeah.
which is, I don't know, like I personally try to always, like, it's not that I am trying to manufacture that, but when I'm aware that something is happening like that, in an album, like, I'll leave it even if I fuck it up, like, because I am one of these people that like, I think, as much as I'm find myself on the other end of this, like in like despair, and like, sometimes, morosely, you know like being like, when is this shit gonna be over? I I'm I am also the opposite, to where I'm like, I can't believe, like, this is the only chance that I get to live and do all of these things, and I want every one of them to mean as much as they can, and I want every one of them. I don't want to look back at something and not have something that I can almost just reach out and grab, like, inside of a memory. And so it's when I become aware of these events, when I'm recording or something, like, I will leave it no matter what happens, because when I go back to that, I'm like, I like, I remember that that's what this is. And yeah, I don't know, there's a spot in, like, probably nearly everything that I've recorded, that where, that happens. And I don't know, it's like, if I was playing to a click, if I was doing this, if I was doing that, like, I couldn't do that. I'd be too worried about, like, X, Y, or Z, But
Right, right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
there's something about the click that really just takes it out of you.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there was one song, there was like one recording where I tried to do it on, in very very early Coma Regalia, and I did it, and I thought the songs were like fine, and I listened to it, and I was like, let me just try it without it. And it was so much better. I don't know. That's on me, but like, I have recorded to other people's stuff on a click. I have one project that, like, I'm kind of still, like, working on, where it was recorded to a click, and like, it's not like, it's not like it's like whatever, but there's something to it that's like, I'm just like, yeah, this is everybody playing everything really well, and like, whatever, but this isn't like everybody, like, I feel like it just, I don't know. Sometimes I just want things to fly on the seat of their pants.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so, you and I, like, got to know each other by, Tiff randomly just like messaging me when I was like looking for people to do vocals on the Felony for Existing recording. And that was like, I don't know, like a couple years ago at this point, right? But
Yeah.
you were like, you and her were doing Daisy Gold since like 2018 is when Grief came out, right? So is that more or less like the first band where you have songs that you're like, yeah, these are like songs I'll show people and that I'm proud of and stuff like that? Or did you have bands before that you want to bring up?
I had bands before it, but I have scrubbed them.
Yeah, yeah, that's
um,
yeah.
yeah, for all intents and purposes, Daisy Gold is all that ever has or ever will be.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah. I don't have a ton of bands like that, but I got a couple. We were all like in high school once. Um But
Right.
yeah. So the like I said, Days of Gold. Your first release was in 2018, and that is the Grief EP, and that is a huge EP. And I couldn't. I don't really know how you would describe y'all's sound, or if you even really feel like that's the way you sound anymore, or I'm not sure, because that was 6 years ago at this point or whatever. But
Right.
the EP has like a huge meaning to it, and background, and there's something for sure that, like, it doesn't matter how many years ago it was recorded, like, you can tell, like, how big of a release it is for you. Um, was the band more or less formed so you could write that EP?
Um, no. So Tiff and I started dating in 2013. We started renting a house together in 2014, and I was like, all right, I'm getting fucking drums. And she had always wanted to play drums growing up, like her brothers played drums.
Okay.
Um, so I kept pushing her to go behind the kit and just, here, you just play this 4 count beat, and I'm just gonna play like some riffs over it. And she had a lot of fun, and so the band was sort of birthed out of me teaching her to play drums.
Okay.
I don't think we always knew that that's what we were gonna do. Like, we always wanted to record and stuff like that. At the same time, though, so the subject matter of the record, so I think it was right around the time that we started dating. My niece finally got her cancer diagnosis, and like me and Tiff went for like a 3 hour long just drive through the night, and like I just shared that with her. I think we weren't even dating yet, and so she was there from the beginning with me, like going through that.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess I don't even know how to answer, but yeah, like, it wasn't born to like do this record, but also it sort of was.
Okay. Yeah, it's just the time that it took to get to that point where you were comfortably writing songs together that would
Yeah.
become the record. Like, all of these other things were unfolding, and so this it was this bit of, like, synchronicity, as like terrible as that synchronicity was, like,
Hmm.
just it resulted in that. um so, like, y'all haven't had a ton of stuff since then. Is there is that is the reason partially because of how big that EP was, or is it just like a billion other factors going on in the world?
Um, it's like life. So we have quite a few songs that we would like to record.
Oh, okay.
I don't know when we're gonna do them. It's definitely an undertaking. So Tiff started recording herself when we did the Boris cover.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so hopefully we'll be more able to release stuff, like more quickly, I guess, in time. But yeah, I mean, she learned how to play drums as an adult, so like it's always hard,
Yeah.
like learning a new song is like it's a few-month ordeal. We're running through it together a few times and stuff, like a few times a week or whatever. She'll play by herself when she has the time and stuff like that. But yeah, it's Not that she's like the main holdup or anything like that, but it's stuff like that.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to pose that question like hey, what's the holdup?
No,
I
no, not at
just
all.
yeah, if there was a if there was a story there, like, or whatever, then I wanted you to have the space to tell that story. That's all. Um, but yeah, it's that 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 Boris cover, by the way. I mean, that sounds so good. Like I I think that every band on that comp like did something very very cool, and like I think every band
Absolutely.
but like as far as just like the sheer like production or whatever, like I just was floored by that. And
Thank you.
yeah, almost to where I was like, you know what, you can mix the worn through record, but at the same time I was like, you know what, like like I'm so like not like controlling, but like because like at what point did I ever go to you and be like, that's not what I wanted vocally, like it's not a control
Oh
thing,
my
but
God, and I was always asking too.
yeah, yeah. So it's not like a control thing, but like it's just like I don't I don't I don't ever want to put somebody in the position that I put myself in, where I'm like rendering something like dozens of times and then listening and being like, I'm going to move this one word of these vocals down 1.5 dB,
Right,
or
right.
like, like, or, and then I'm going to move this other one up 0.75, like I never want to put somebody through that. And I'm like, and I know like I would either have to or I'd be dissatisfied, so it's just like,
Yeah.
and then, and there's like, yeah, I don't know. Production is so weird, right? It's just like, there's only been there's only been one person that mixed any Coma Regalia song other than me, and that was Steve Roche, from the drummer from Seisha, the
Hmm.
engineer at Permanent Hearing Damage, and and it was so funny too, because like I got the mix back and I was like, that's exactly what I would have done. Like that's exactly how it would sound if I did it. But the
Hell yeah.
biggest thing with that one is that we were still only at the point where Jason could only record two mics on the drums. So like
Oh wow.
I was like, there's no way that I can get, like, it was going on that secret voice comp, which like had Masanera and like it had everybody, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
there's no way I'm sending like a song that has like less than great sounding drums, So like I was like, I better let Steve handle this. And it's like, yeah, like it's like that's exactly what I would have done with it if I could have made the drums on only two mics sound that big and good, like,
Right.
but especially couldn't at the time. Like, but yeah, but it was just funny because like he sent it back and he's like, you want anything changed? And there's just this vocal at the end where I was like, oh, I just want that to sound like, ironically enough, because Tom from You and I, and hundreds of AU and all that played
Hmm.
bass on the song. I was like, oh, you know how on the You and I record, like all the talked vocals sound like they're, like really, they're like a sample from a record. And also they did have samples from records, but anyway, he's like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, sent it back. And I was like, yep, that's it. The telephone, you put the telephone on it, basically.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. The cover turned out incredible. I think like it was a bunch of really cool ideas that you did, but also just like the production was like, holy shit.
Thank you.
So yeah, whenever y'all do get around to doing some new stuff, I'm sure it's gonna be awesome. Um, do you like not? Do you all not practice like in your house? Is it like you have to have somewhere separate to like have everything set up and stuff like that? Is that like also part of it, or?
No, we do practice in the house. It's
It's a whole
just we don't.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the room I'm sitting in right now, it's what would be the master bedroom of the house.
Uh-huh.
So our bedroom is the next one down.
Okay.
um, so the drums are in here, all my amps are in here, everything's set up. This is where we record, this is where we rehearse. Like it's the whole music space, but just life is also fucking life.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I I mean, I'm practically the only person that ever even comes downstairs. So like this whole playground down here is up for whatever I want to do, but at the same time it's like even just like I don't have enough stuff to just have my drums mic'd up all the time. Like I wish I just had like enough, like XLR cables and stuff to just like have these drum mics just like leave them there at all times, because like I it'd be ridiculous how many songs I would record if that was the case, and I already record more than people care to hear. But like but it's like, so it's even that it's just like you're just like, okay, like moving, and then like I have to have the computer, like, which is like it's a desktop computer, and it's in like a college computer desk that I actually got out of the dumpster on Purdue campus like years ago. And I actually got the chair I'm sitting in on out of a dumpster over there as well. But like, so it's like setting up all the mics, and then it's like, oh yeah, I gotta like bring the computer desk like over right next to my like drum stool so I can like hit record myself, and like,
Oh gosh.
all this stuff. And so it's like, yeah, even if you have like the space, even if you have like everything, sometimes it's just like, like when am I supposed to do this? Like, it takes an hour to set it up, and then like I have to like make people dinner or whatever. And so it's just like, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, you know we I did I so I asked you to do the vocals on the Worn Through because like I was so impressed with the song that you did for the Felony for Existing. And I was like, like 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 I I think there's like a lot of great vocalists and stuff, but I think that a lot of times like sometimes people's sometimes like um dynamics aren't always like what people are into. Sometimes people like just want to scream the whole song, or like sometimes
Yeah.
there's even like it's like people say like clean vocals, and so it's funny because like it a lot of people are like that, right? Like with their vocals, it's like just like a guitar pedal where it's just like, here's the distortion pedal, and it's like, so here's my vocals, and then turn the pedal off, and now they're clean. And it's like
Right.
there's a real, and so like that's what I really liked about like what you did, because I was like, there's a dynamism here that like I'm really into. And I didn't know until you were posting about it on like one of the social media like posts or whatever, that when I asked you, you were actually at ZBR Fest.
I lied when I posted that.
Oh, you lied? Okay.
It was the night before ZBR Fest. I was at X-Ray Arcade seeing Senza and Snag.
Oh, okay. So
But
like
yeah, ZBR weekend.
basically, yeah, ZBR pre fest, because they actually did have a pre fest. But so yeah, that's wild. So like I'm basically like, yeah, I want you to do this, but like I want you to do it real fast. and like, that didn't happen, but like that's okay. That's always okay. But like, and the thing probably turned out like way better because of it. But like, um, like there's a through line for the lyrics. Like I think even if people don't know what the song's about, even if whatever, I think people can read that into it. Um, was that always something that you wanted to do with the album?
Um, at first I didn't. So so if nobody has noticed yet, I wrote all the lyrics without any first person pronouns, right? Which is something that you came up with.
Right.
Super challenging way to write, but it was very cool. Um, I didn't want to put something so personal and something that like wasn't mine, but then I was like, no, this is mine too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it took me a little while to come around. Like I wrote a lot of drafts of lyrics and like that they're not thrown away, but they're in the drawer.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and you know, so in 2020, my best friend died in a car accident, and obviously that's like what a lot of it's about. That I mean, that's just the thing that keeps coming back to me when I sit down to try to write. You know, like it's like write what you know, write how you feel. And I mean, like you, I don't even know how to put it. It's something that has like occupied my mind for the last few years. You know, so I
Yeah.
think I was trying to write that out and make some form of like acceptance with it.
Mm-hmm.
If I can turn back time, I feel the time. If I fucking turn after the time, I think that it's time. For 3 years, driving down one day, I might feel alright. And forget the sound of your voice. Wanna fuck up for now, and then forever. When does it get easier? If you were just young, then I could keep my promise not to die. I don't know what I'm supposed to do without you. Without you by my side, by my side, by my side, without you by my side.
I've said this in different ways about different things, whether it's like the music that you're writing itself or the like the topic or whatever. But I I I think that there is a real importance to like saying that it's okay to your like saying to yourself that it's okay to revisit something like because you weren't through with it yet. You know, you
Yeah,
weren't like you hadn't hit hit that the way that you wanted to, or like, you know, whether that's like I said music, or whether it's like, yeah, I didn't like, because we're doing this for a large part because like we get some kind of catharsis out of it. And
exactly. Yeah.
like just because like it makes you feel maybe better, or you know, or maybe that's not the right word for it, but like just because you get some of that doesn't mean you're gonna come out all the way on the other side, and like
Right.
never, you know. But yeah, it's like I know what you mean. Like as far as like, because that's how I was. That's why I was like so like about like doing the other vocals. Is I was like, yeah, this is this is not my experience, but this is a this there are aspects to this that I can relate to and that I can, and that's why I was like, yeah, I'm not going to print my lyrics because mine is, this is like, this is how I relate to this. This isn't like this is part of the story or this is part of, you know, like, and I don't know if that makes like, I don't think that anybody that doesn't hear this like even is going to read anything into any of those things. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Right.
like, and I don't think that like, you know, anybody that does is like necessarily going to be like, well, that's weird as hell, Edie. You know, like, why'd you do that? Like, why didn't you just stay in your own lane? You know, but like, we had talked about, you know, at length that like, yeah, if there was some spots, like, then I would, you know, I'd chime in there, you know, or whatever. And
Yeah.
yeah, I really just, you know, getting away from like the subject matter altogether and sort of just addressing that part of it, like it I realize, or I have thought to myself, maybe this is just one of those things where it's just like nobody else ever thinks this, but like I'm like always like, I don't let the band just jam enough. Like I'm always like, but what if there was like one scream there, you know, or like what if there was like one thing? And so when I was listening to it, I was definitely like, these open spots, like, is it okay that they're just open? And I did leave some for sure, but
Yeah.
like, you know, especially in like this the second song, I'm drawing a blank on the title, but I was like, this is like the beginning of the song though. Like I really feel like I don't want to just leave, you know? So that's why I'm like, okay, yeah, if I can do something cool there, then I'll do something cool there, you know? Or then like the one spot in the fifth song where I was like, yeah, I think like this is like a part that like, you know, we can put a little bit of, you know, or whatever. And yeah, the rest, you know, the rest of it, I just was like, yeah, if I put something here, then it kind of like, it's like, I'm talking about like how I was really into the dynamics, and like, it's like this changes the dynamics too much. Like if you do this, you know, or whatever.
Right.
And so we didn't have a lot of, even though we were chatting like all the time about these different aspects of it, we didn't ever chat like I didn't ever say, is there a reason why you left this part blank? You know? And like partially because like I don't necessarily even know how to communicate like what part I'm talking about sometimes, you know, like
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like, I mean, in the second song's instance, that would have been easy enough. Well, there's the two parts in the beginning and there's just nothing there, you know, but like, yeah, it's like, I don't know. I've had these conversations where it's just like, and then there's the whole like people count things in different ways, and like, you know, like Jason will be like, oh, this part goes like 2 times, and I'm like, no, it doesn't. It goes 8 times, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
don't, you know. So it was just like, well, like I hope this is all good. It's all good, you know. It's cool, and yeah, I think it turned out great. So you know,
Yeah.
if anybody else has any opinions on that, I guess, you know, like write a review and and at me in it, because you know, because not enough people would do that anymore. Not enough people are like writing reviews and stuff. It's weird to me, but and And I can't review it in my own zine, obviously. That'd be kind of weird, right? We,
Conflict of interest.
yeah, yeah. We'll have you review the Coma of Iris because you're not in that, and then I'll have Jesse review the one.
That's
um,
perfect.
yeah, so it's like, well, oh, that's weird. Jesse reviewed our album. No, but Jesse is not doing that. I already know what Jesse's reviewing. But anyway, um, yeah, like you mentioned, like you started over on the lyrics more than once, and that's something that I'm pretty familiar with. But did you also did you do like different takes and stuff like a lot, or was it kind of just like by the time you were hitting record, you more or less had everything planned out?
Oh, so I had plans, and then I would go to record, and I'm like, I can't fucking do that. I cannot make that happen. My throat will not do that. I was still editing lyrics until I was done editing, till I was done chopping all this shit out of it. Like I recorded layers, so I'd have okay, I did this with these extra couple words in here. I did it without those extra couple words. Here I tried saying a different word and stuff like that.
Mm.
So there was a big picture plan, but all the small details I was still refining until I was done.
Yeah, yeah, it goes like that sometimes. I mean, I've one of our albums, I more or less recorded the entire, all of the vocals again, because I was just like, nah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. Um, which was, I don't know, like when I was telling somebody else in the band about that, they were like, "What is wrong with you?" And I was like, "Wait, where should I start?" But yeah, I think that there is, I mean, I'm on here 30 minutes ago talking about how I will leave something, even if it's bad, because it makes me feel a certain way. And then I'm also
But
the
at the
opposite.
same time,
Yeah, I'm like, nah. But it is, yeah, it is interesting. There's I feel like there's I don't want to say fine line. I don't think the line is that fine. I think there's a large margin that you should stay out of. But it's the difference between over editing and just going with the first thing,
Mhm.
And I also feel like that depends on the instrument. I feel like guitar especially is way more for me personally, if I'm just and I make some weird noise and I'm like, that was so cool. And even if it's oh, I actually messed up what I was supposed to do there, but it made this really cool weird noise transition kind of thing, phenomena, or whatever. I'm
Mhm.
super into that. But bass is different. Bass, I'm no. I'm when I sit down and I play bass, no. No, the margin for error is next to nothing
Oh my god.
because it feels so much more wrong
Yeah.
when it's off, And I probably still am not always in the pocket, as they say, but yeah, I don't know. It's so different. And I don't know, vocals are a little bit like that for me. It's just I just know when it's not doing what, And then there's the thing which I don't know if this is what you were touching on or not, but there's the whole my eyes were bigger than my mouth, or my stomach rather, thing where it's you
Yeah.
just think you're oh, that would be so sick if I did this thing like this, and then you're just why did I think I could do that? I'm not, I'm not, my voice has never done that. Why would I think that that's possible? Um, so
I
yeah,
got my first real taste of that too when I was doing the vocals for the Boris cover. Cause he says some fucking nonsense in that song to begin with, but when you're trying to go twice as fast, that shit comes out fast.
Yeah.
Like it was a matter of figuring out what style of vocal I needed to do to fit that many words in this amount of space, you know?
Yeah. And like that was a big thing for me to get used to, like because I like grew up listening to bands like Bad Religion and stuff where they were just like you know, like,
Yeah, how do
and
you do that?
yeah, and it's just like, you know, um yeah, it's always like it's always about like where, you know, where you're like how can I take like how can I take this and turn this from like 11 syllables into 8, you know, or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And I got to I got to that point sometimes where it's like where you're, you know, you are literally like you got it, you got the rhythm going in your head and you got the words and you're like, yeah, that should work. And then you go and you try it and you're like, hold on. And like I'll sit there and actually count like 1, 2, 3, 4. How many syllables like am I looking for, and how many am I trying to do? You know, and it's like,
Right.
and you're like, no, can no longer just has to turn into can't. Like that's all there is to it. You know, like
Yeah.
we're not fitting can no longer or whatever. You know, like that's not necessarily an actual example, but in case people go and think every time I say can't in a song I was trying to say can no longer, like sound, you know. I just admitted that I was really into Bad Religion at some point, so that would track, you know. But yeah, like this is the longest thing that you've done then, right? Or that's not, I don't even know, like maybe the Grief EP was actually longer than this, but even though it was only 5 songs, I don't know.
I think Grief is like 16 minutes. This is like
Okay.
22.
Yeah, we're getting up to 23. I personally think that an LP is 20 minutes or more.
Yeah.
That's my first screamo, you know. So
And it's like,
I call this an LP.
look, it's got 9 songs. I don't care if they're 30 seconds.
Yeah. Well, if 9 songs was 30 seconds, that would be a fucking, yeah, that would make like Loma Prieta or whatever with like their 12-minute LP. Like that'd be like grind. It's like it's not grindcore, but it's screamo, but it's like grindcore length. But
Right.
yeah. So like
I don't even know how to say the name, but the newest Coma album, Ultimacia.
yeah. It's pretty
Is that
close.
how you say it? Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Altimacia, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, how long is that? Like,
About,
that's gotta be.
I'm not gonna say because I just said they should be 20 minutes, and that's definitely an LP. So I'm not gonna say.
For sure.
And yeah, and if anybody uploads that to YouTube, please pad it out a little bit to make me look good.
Sorry for the call out.
this is not a call, but it is. Yeah, it's around 20. You know, it's close enough in my opinion. The other thing with me is that, like, do I feel like it really finished an idea that it started, or
Yeah.
or is it kind of like, is there a brevity to the answers or the questions that made it feel like, hey, there's more to this? And that's where I land on Ultimacia, is like, no, this is the thing. And
It's perfect as it is.
yeah, and also, like, you know, I despite like I feel like it went a lot of places, and that's the other thing, right? It You know, like it went a lot of places. Even like, I don't know, even if like it being our 8th album or whatever, even if people were like, yeah, this is a cool Coma Regalia album, and it didn't make them feel like it was that different or whatever, like I feel like it was different, and I think that it went all the places that it needed to go. Yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, so like the split with Snag, like I could tell you were going somewhere different, and I think you realized it there.
Right. It was so funny enough that the Coma of Eris thing came out this year is like I've said before, like that one was like literally like 6 years in the making. And that's like a
Yeah, that's
long
true.
story that I've sort of told, but that's what's funny to about the Coma Snag thing is like when I was doing the Coma of Eris thing with Jesse and I was getting Jesse's drums and I was writing to them, I was like, I want to make something that sounds like a cross between Mile Marker and like Fire Hose. And I was like, it's not going to work. And I was like, but I'm going to try it. And so I was doing that over Jesse's drums. And then the stuff Jesse was sending me back, I was like, holy shit, I can still do this. Like to the stuff Jesse. So it sounds like really cohesive and stuff. But then that happened like so long ago. And there was this whole like, this is never going to happen. Like, this is never going to come out. So that basically when Jason and I started doing the thing for the snag split, I was like, that Fire Hose Mile Marker thing never really happened. So, like, I feel like there's a, despite it being like totally like just me, me and Jason and Tom on the snag split and like having Jesse and Dave on the, Coma of Iris thing, I feel like there's a like those are way closer musically than like you know what I mean? Like than like Altimacia and like our split with like Letter Bombs and them and stuff like that. Like those are
Yeah.
like they kind of group into these same like what was I trying to do kind of things. But whereas like Worn Through, I don't really remember like exactly what I was trying to do, except like I had a baseline of cool ideas, and I was like how will I fill this out in a way that I feel like I don't typically do, and like one of those instances is for sure in they come up in the middle and then they come up in the last song where it's like I was like I don't listen to a lot of like sludgy stuff,
Oh, yeah.
but like I've always wanted to to do something like that, and I have sort of tried it, and I feel like it never worked as well as it did, on that, and yeah, that was yeah, for sure. Lots of those moments recording that I like have alluded to earlier, where I was like, like the really I don't know, grindy, droney sounding guitars in 9 a.m. where I'm like just in the left speaker, just like I can be just I can every time I hear that I can be right back in front of my speaker cabinet, like in my mind, when I was like
That's great.
recording that, and like and
It's such a good, perfect, like, I don't even know what you call it, like, musically, but I love that shit.
yeah. And then the so that part went down first, which is like I am usually like I have like a system. I won't go into that too much, but that part went down first, and then the part in the other side is that's like kind of the first time when like I had like both guitars where it was like there was just something happening where it was just like, because the guitars in that right side, like they were just completely improvised during that part, and like I think that like the guitars on the right are basically like wrong. But I'm like, that's I was like I was just like I was as much I felt like I was still like I'm listening and I'm recording, but I felt like I was still playing the other guitar. Like I was just like I was like so like in this moment that I was like have you ever been where you're playing a show and like you're you're like you like forget to play something or something because like you know how the song goes and it's like you expect it to just come out of the speakers on its own. Like that's literally what was
Yeah.
happening. Like I was just like I just forgot I was supposed to be like playing the guitar or something, and then I'm just like, oh, and I hit these notes and I was like, that is so weird. Like I never would have like done that. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like now maybe like listen to it like twice and I was like, no, that has to stay. Like I if I play the right thing, like it's not going to be maybe it'll be like better, but it won't be that, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know. But um you talked about like you talked about editing and I remember you saying like I gotta I gotta cut out my breathing. What
Yeah.
what did you mean by that specifically? I mean, I have a pretty good idea, but like
Like literally, like going in and like doing like turbo crossfades between lines because like
oh okay.
I am not what's his fucking name, the chocolate rain guy. I move away from the mic to breathe.
Oh right, right.
Tezande. Yeah, I don't. So I record into like a condenser, so I'm not holding it. It's one thing if you're like performing with a dynamic mic, right? But
Mhm.
like if I move away from the condenser, I won't get back in time, or I'll like feel like I'm in the wrong position, and I just won't like the take. So I kind of just breathe freely.
Just going for it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's weird like how there's just like anything else, there's kind of like these times where you know when you're when you're when you're editing or you're mixing or whatever and like when I'm mixing and like some of the vocals have like more effects on them than others like when all is said and done, right? So and I'm like
mhm.
yeah, I don't like I'm gonna fade the trail out on the effects there, but in these other spots I'm not going to, and so there was spots where I was like, I wonder if she wants me to like cut like this part where before she starts screaming, you can hear this huge gasp for air or whatever. And so it was like
Oh no, it's
so
probably just what I
sometimes
missed.
sometimes I'm like, nah, we're leaving that. Like there's one song where
Yeah,
it's like, before you start, you're like, ah, and you can hear it. I don't know if you can hear it in the finished song, but when I'm mixing, like, and you're hyper vigilant to all that, like you can hear that, and you're like, no, that's
yeah,
good. That's good because it's like, here we fucking go, like, and it's fun. But then, yeah, and then sometimes there's like the effects that I might have put in on the vocals and the guitars and the bass are just going like bum 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 and there's like a dead stop and then you hear like this you hear that like oscillator or whatever in the stops and I'm like, why does that not bother me now? Why does it sound kind of cool right now, but like I'll fade it out or like I'll cut it altogether in other spots, and it's like the same with like the the bass, right? Like the way the way like a bass will pick up like every single like like when you have that transamp distortion on a bass, like a strong wind could hit the strings and it'll just be like like
yeah,
and it was like a lot of like, yeah, we're crushing that, so like that's gone so that there can be a dead stop here, but then sometimes it's like you want to hear that and it's, I don't know, like that's part of the fun, like everything else about editing is a nightmare for me. I hate it, but like but those kinds of decisions are, where you like really get to decide what kind of personality this stuff has, you know?
Yeah, and honestly, it's like it's not unlike live performance. So like I remember playing my first shows, like I did what I always did during band practice. When the song was over, I rolled my guitar volume knob off, and it was like dead fucking quiet on stage, and it feels all awkward. And then you go see a band who knows what they're doing, and their guitars are just like screeching between songs. The vocalist is just yelling some bullshit between, and then they go into the next one. Um, it's a totally different experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I personally can't handle it when it's just like dead quiet in between songs or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's why like on any like length of tour or whatever, we will have it to where like if you are clapping in between songs, I won't even know it because like I have to go. Like I can't like make eye contact with people in the crowd and stuff
Oh
during
God, yeah.
because like I just um and stuff like that. It's like if I'm on a stage, then my lowering the mic thing doesn't work anymore, and then I'm like, oh God, like what am I gonna do? But yeah, but yeah, I feel like I for sure could sit here and chat and ramble all evening, um, but like what you mentioned that you've got like some more songs to record and stuff like that. And, it's always a matter of like when, when do we want to do this? And like, sometimes it's kind of like even just like, you have to sometimes like make yourself just be like, okay, fine, we're going to do this. What
Right.
are your plans for like as far as like new Daisy Gold stuff? Like, are you waiting for like a certain amount of songs and then it's like, okay, now we'll come up with a game plan, or is it all just like, look, like this year has been a shit show. We need like some kind of shit to settle down and then we'll figure it out. Like where are you at as far as like your songs and what people can expect?
So two main things. So we are supposed to try out a bassist soon. So I played bass on our last song, and I was playing bass pedals on Grief, right? So yeah, we're supposed to try out a bassist soon. And depending on how all that goes and stuff, it might affect it. But I think just as soon as we feel like we're ready, maybe in the next couple months or something, just gonna like record a song probably.
Mm-hmm.
Recording a whole album is like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And like I would love to like do it all of the time, but it's hard when you can't like continue to work on it. When it's like, okay, I will spend 1 hour mixing this week, or we'll spend 2 hours tracking this week. That type of stuff. It makes it a lot harder, and it's like, God, this is never gonna fucking come out. So I feel like we're probably just gonna end up doing like a singular song. Hopefully in the next few months. No concrete plans, but
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that's like a good way to like record an album? Like, are you comfortable with your like ability to record like a song at a time and then be like, hey, I can mix these all to where they sound like an album? Or is that not like at all part of your plan?
no, not really part of the plan, but that's sort of how we've done it before.
Yeah.
Like Grief, we recorded the drums over like a few weeks. And then, I did my parts and stuff like that. And it was December, I think, that year when we tracked the drums. And then it was probably May when I did the vocals, and it came out in July.
Yeah.
So like the long termness and like the doing stuff one at a time, not a big deal. Like our space is consistent enough that I wouldn't be afraid of mixing it.
Yeah.
Like nothing really moves in here. So
I I'm like the exact opposite because like I said, I'm like the only person that comes down here like, like I mean, gosh, it's probably like less than like once a month my kids will come down here and screw around and do something. But like still it's like I don't know what I'm doing like as far as like when I feel like this guitar cabinet has not moved from the wall, but like I feel like every time like I put the mics in the same exact spot and I get like completely different results. Like I'm just like
right,
I and like and as far as like drums, I have tried like a million different things, but even if I'm like this is how I used to always do it, like I'll get different results. And like part of that, I'll be fair, is because like I do not know how to tune drums. Like I'm so bad at it. Like for for as well as I can play drums and like everybody can like I'll leave spot so people can laugh right there. But like as well as I can do that, like I just when it comes to like tuning drums, like I know like I'm like digga digga dooga 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 and I'm like cool, they sound good. And like that's
right.
all like that matters to me, like um so like people that like know how to really tune drums and stuff, like it's like they're like, oh god. But that's why it was really cool when Jason and I were like getting together in person a lot more, because like I would guarantee to have my drums tuned up like every 6 months, like
Yeah.
hell yeah, they're gonna sound great for like a month, like, and then I'll have to wait like 4 months and then they'll sound great again. But
Oh no, like I'll drive myself nuts. I will record like half the song and then I will loop the snare drum like just a ba 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 ba, and I will have it blaring out of the monitors while I'm trying to tune the snare drum and make sure it's still exactly that same pitch.
yeah, yeah, um yeah, no comment. No comment. Like I will I'll I'll say something to you off camera, or off the mic as it were. But I won't. There's no part of me that will denigrate like anything that I like. That's not like, I don't think that I've never like been like, oh, I sucked, but I should put this out anyway. That's not like me at all. But like there's always like that thing where it's just like, you know, oh, I see what happened here, and like that could have been avoided, but it wasn't avoided, so we're gonna roll with it. And like
Right,
it
right.
doesn't mean that like I didn't it doesn't mean that I'm like unhappy, but at the same time, like it's one of those things where it's like when you fuck up at your show and somebody tells you good job, like don't say I fucked up 3 times,
Right.
because it's like why don't take that away from someone's experience.
Mhm.
So yeah, but yeah that's I mean my whole thing, especially with drums, is like I get to a point where I'm like I won't get tired anymore, and I'm just stoked and I'm just going, and I'm like I'm in a spot where I'm like hell yeah, let's go. And then like I'm on a roll, right? And I half the time I'm like I don't even stop and drink water. I'm just like hit record again. It's time for the next song. And then later you kind of might be like, "Oh, right. Like I could have, maybe tighten that snare back up or whatever. And it's like
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world.
Nobody's
Like
gonna notice it but
yeah.
you.
And also, if you do notice it, like if you're like, yeah, like she could have tightened that snare back up right there. Just know the reason why I didn't is because I was having the time of my fucking life. So,
There you go.
sue
Yeah.
me. Like it was just like I was just like, I got past that point where like where I'm not tired anymore. I'm not gonna be tired. Nothing, like I got to that point where like nothing can stop me. And like that
Mhm.
if you get that way when you're making music, like you deserve to like, you deserve to be taken down a peg or two later, you know, in a way, right? Because like you deserve to feel that way. Like, and you like, yeah, I don't know, you know, like maybe there's a price to pay for feeling that good. Like where you're just like, oh, but, yeah. You know, so I don't know, music rules, recording music rules, you know, like
Yeah.
try to drink your water. You know, try not to hyperventilate behind the kit. You know, try to make sure you're always screaming from the diaphragm so you don't end up with polyps. You know, try to be
Oh, I'm
responsible,
pumped.
but if you get lost in the moment, you know, hey, this is all we got. We only, you know, we as far as we all know, this is our one shot to do something really cool and something we're proud of. So you know,
Yeah.
if you do any of those things and if they're not perfect, then don't worry about it. And that was my conversation with Aster Lyra Scott. Thank you so much, Aster, for taking the time to chat with me. Thanks to all of y'all for listening wherever you are as well. If you haven't already, go to middlemanrecords.bandcamp.com and check out Worn Through's debut album, A Thorn, A Sliver, and pick up a cassette while you're at it. Then go by daisygold.bandcamp.com and check out their stuff as well. Until next time, take care and do good things.